Hello and a very warm welcome back to my YouTube channel. In this upload, I'm going to be answering a viewer question, but before I do that, I want to say please feel free to submit your questions in the comments area below, and I'm going to endeavour to answer those questions in a sort of a Q&A style upload interspersed within my usual content. And if you have ideas for themes for me to address on this channel, or ideas for how I might present information on this channel, please feel free to share that as well. I'd absolutely love to hear your ideas. So the question asks, how do we discern between intuitive warnings and negative thoughts slash feelings, which is an absolutely excellent question because it can be tricky sometimes to discern between the two. The good news is that once you recognize it, it's very straightforward. When it comes to an intuitive warning, to use the language of the question, this is going to show up as a singular sensation that repels. Now, you might recognize this as a gut feeling. It's a sensation that stops you or seeks to stop you from taking an action or doing something or proceeding with something. So, as I said, it's a singular sensation that repels. Now, this is different from the nature of thinking with feeling. When we think with feeling, we are communicating to the divine. Remember, we use the spiritual language of emotion to communicate with the divine, and that communication tells God what form to take. And remember, God is no respecter of person. We are capable of producing lovely things, just as capable of producing lovely things as we are of producing unlovely things. So the thoughts that we attend with feeling, we communicate to the divine, we tell God what form to take, and those communications produce physical outcomes. And so, as I've said, this is different from an intuitive warning, which will show up as a singular sensation that repels. Now, that doesn't mean that having received that sensation, we don't then go on to catastrophize or panic. But if you find yourself doing that, you can know with confidence that this is fearful thinking taking over. One of the things that we use to identify our human process of thinking with feeling is that this process is attended by mental imagery, other sensations. It's more prolonged. It's not an instantaneous message that delivers what it has to deliver and then moves on. It's something that takes over the mind, can preoccupy our time. It's something that we might find ourselves coming back to again and again. But there's no need to worry. Remember, as Neville Goddard teaches us, what we make, we can unmake. And even if it seems like an absolutely terrifying prospect, it is nonetheless true that we have the authority and the ability to separate or sever the connection between our negative thoughts and those outcomes and ourselves by becoming indifferent to the outcomes of those thoughts or the thoughts themselves. And you do that by taking your attention away and putting it on something else. It doesn't mean it isn't a natural human response to worry or to become fearful, particularly when we're presented by lots of evidence that tells us that everything is going wrong. And it does take a great deal of courage. What I'm reminding us of by what I'm saying is that we nonetheless have the ability and, more importantly, the authority to take our attention away from, let's call it, wrong thinking or the effects of wrong thinking. I don't love that term, but you know what I mean. And to put it on the outcomes we desire instead. Once we don't have any emotional or feeling response to the things that we are fearful of, the things that have been produced by that type of thinking loses its context and it loses its effect on us. I know the question refers to how we distinguish between the two, and I've addressed that at the beginning of the upload, but I just wanted to mention that in case anyone was wondering where do we go from there? How do we resolve that once we've had those fearful thoughts? So when it comes to any kind of intuitive message, remember it's going to show up as a singular sensation, and we know that human thinking with feeling takes over when it becomes a more drawn out process, as I said, attended by mental images, other sensations, other ideas, and so on. And going further still, it's really interesting that the impressions, which are typically desires that are divine, are expansive and inspirational, and typically our human thoughts are constrained by the limits of our beliefs. So what we believe our resources to be, what we believe our capabilities to be, and so on. Our human thoughts are always bound by those things, whereas divine thoughts and feelings are characteristic of being expansive beyond the context of the thought. So it's showing us what can be, what is possible, and it's very often limitless. So that's just to add a bit extra to that. So in answer to the question, intuitive warnings are always singular sensations that repel, in other words, a gut feeling, whereas fearful thoughts are a more protracted experience attended by mental images and other physical sensations. So I hope that answers the question. I trust it does. As I say, if you have any questions, share them below and I will create this type of upload for you. Thank you very much for being with me and for listening. And if you are so inclined, please do subscribe to my channel, which will help me to grow. Until we are together again, stay phenomenally you.